terrorist thugs, these insurrectionists, have been organizing on social media platforms since then. They were using Twitter, they're using Facebook, but especially new social media platforms like Parler. We see that Donald Trump has been permanently kicked off of Twitter. He's been permanently kicked off of Twitter. That's his personal account. He had 88 million followers on his personal account. We see that a number of social media platforms have either suspended his account, like Facebook suspended his account at least till he leaves office, or have totally removed him from their platform. Now, you know, I've been calling for Trump to be banned from Twitter for some time now. I don't know what. I guess it took. I guess it took a attempted overthrow of the government by thousands of insurrectionists and 5 people dead for you to realize, Jack Dorsey, that Trump needs to be kicked off of Twitter after numerous violations and bullying members of Congress on Twitter, retweeting numerous white supremacist posts and things like this. It took this for you to realize, oh, he needs to be banned. He needs to be banned permanently. Okay, so we're going to give you an update on what's going on with this. You have more calls for Trump to be removed from office and be impeached, or the 25th Amendment. Then you have some people who are scared and say, oh, well, you have some people who are scared and say, oh, this is going to enrage his not his entire base, because everybody who votes for Trump, everyone who voted for Trump does not agree with this, what took place, the insurrection. Everybody voted for, so I just want to say that. But the crazies, the insurrectionists, oh, it's going to inflame them. So what? They committed, so what? What they did was committed felonies. So they have to, so they have to suffer the consequences. You have to prepare for that. We'll deal with this on the other side of the break. You listen to the African History Network show right here on 910 a.m. the Superstation Future Radio. I'm Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes. Stand by, everybody. Stand by. All right, how's everybody doing? I got my main laptop hard drive crashed on me. I got to use the backup laptop. I have to go buy another laptop tomorrow because I can't deal with this. I got to go buy another laptop tomorrow. I can't properly broadcast the show. Okay, everybody stand by. Share this broadcast on your social media platforms. Invite your friends to tune in also. If you like this type of information, you can donate to the African History Network, $ the AHN Show through Cash App, $ the AHN Show through Cash App. Then also through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN Show. Okay, stand by. I got to get Skype up. I hope I don't have to download a new version of Skype. Let me try that. I don't even use Skype on this old laptop. What's everybody doing? Follow us on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, and our YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep, IMHOTEP. We're on commercial break. We'll be back from break in just a minute here. Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 910 a.m. the Superstation, the Future Radio. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It is Sunday, January 10th, 2021, and we are live. Hope everybody's doing well. We're broadcasting on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, The African History Network, and also our YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep, IMHOTEP. So follow us on our social media platforms, and you can also watch us broadcast live. And we're broadcasting on 9:10 a.m. Superstation WFDF's Facebook fan page also. All right. Okay, so right before the break, I was giving you an update on what's taking place here with the insurrection, the attempted coup that took place on January 6, 2021, Wednesday, a day that will live in infamy. And they were incited by Donald John Trump, who's trying to stay in office by any means necessary. And this is something that I warned people about Trump in 2016, long before the election. I said he's mentally unfit to be president. He doesn't have the right personality. He has a dictator type tendencies. He really wants to be a dictator. He's ignorant of the U.S. Constitution. He's a bully. He's a thug, etc. And, you know, a lot of people told me, well, you know, hey, we don't need to vote. We just need to do economic empowerment, invest in the stock market, and build businesses and things like this. I'm like, have you ever read the U.S. Constitution before? Do you understand the powers that a president has? I'm all for economic empowerment. My degree's in business administration. I'm all for that. What the hell is what does that have to do with the election, though? Politics is the legal distribution of scarce wealth, power, and resources, and the writing of laws, statutes, ordinances, amendments, and treaties, their adoption, interpretation, and enforcement. Trump was appealing to white supremacists back during the 2016 election. If you understand history, you would have seen this coming, because at the end of periods of time of perceived progress by African Americans, there's always a white backlash. It was a white backlash that ended Reconstruction with the Compromise of 1877, when Rutherford B. Hayes neither Rutherford B. Hayes nor Samuel J. Tilden had enough electoral college votes to become president. So there was a compromise between the Republicans and the Democrats. Republicans said, if you let Rutherford B. Hayes become president, we'll remove the Union troops out of the South. The Democrats wanted the Union troops removed from the South. The Union troops were enforcing the law and enforcing the rights of newly freed African Americans to a certain extent. After that, you have the Jim Crow laws instituted, the black codes really enforced. If you go back to 1871, President Ulysses S. Grant declares martial law in South Carolina. October, I think it was right about October 1871. President Ulysses S. Grant declares martial law in South Carolina using the Ku Klux Klan Act of 1871, and they're cracking down on the Ku Klux Klan. So you have the first Reconstruction in 1877 with a compromise, a white backlash. Then you have the election of Richard Nixon in 1968, which is the end of what's looked at as the second Reconstruction. And that was another white backlash. And Nixon ran on the platform of law and order. Nixon ran on the platform of rebelling against and fighting against the rebellions that were taking place across this country, fighting against the Black Power movement, fighting against the Civil Rights movement. And Nixon wins in 1968 on the platform of law and order. Law and order means protect white people and lock up African Americans. That's the end of the second Reconstruction. He's running as a backlash to the Civil Rights Act of 64, the Voting Rights Act of 65, affirmative action in September 1965. Nixon is a backlash. He's a white backlash to all of that. Well, Donald Trump in 2016 was a combination of Richard Nixon and George Wallace. Donald Trump in 2016 ran on the platform of white grievance against 2 terms of President Barack Obama, white grievance against the Black Lives Matter movement. Because if you go back to 2016, You had Trump and many of his supporters saying that there was a war on police, and they blamed the Black Lives Matter movement and President Barack Obama for a war on police. Then in 2018, this traitor known as Donald Trump, who should be in prison right now, this traitor signs the Blue Lives Matter law into office, into law. He signs the Blue Lives Matter bill into law. That was Trump. Many people think that was Obama. You need to go do some research. That was in 2018. Obama left office January 20th, 2017. Do some research before you post that nonsense on social media. Where were the Blue Lives Matter people when these white supremacist domestic terrorist thugs were attacking U.S. Capitol Police? I'm still waiting for the Blue Lives Matter people to put out a statement or something denouncing these domestic terrorist thugs that attacked the U.S. Capitol building. Where are the Blue Lives Matter people now? Or maybe some of them were doing the attacking. So on the African History Network show, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world, because right now it's correct wrong behavior. What you do for yourself, what you do to yourself, and what you allow the people to do to you and get away with is based upon what you think about yourself. What you think about yourself is based upon what you've been taught about yourself. What you've been taught about yourself is based upon everything you've read, heard, and seen about yourself. So when you control the radius of a man's thoughts, you can control the circumference of his actions, because the mind can't do or teach what it doesn't know. Now, we deal with a number of different topics here on the African History Network show. We deal with current events and history and politics, education, economic empowerment, entrepreneurship, relationships, love, sex, health issues, and much, much more. Sign up for our email newsletter. Text the word Kemet, K-E-M-E-T, to 22828 to sign up for our email newsletter. Text the word Kemet, K-E-M-E-T, 22828 to sign up for our email newsletter. Also visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Now some people may be saying, "Oh, well, you know, you sure using strong language. Why you have to talk like that, brother? You know, just can't we all just get along?" Well, if 78,000 people in Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania had listened to me in 2016, we wouldn't be dealing with this right now. Because I warned our people about this in 2016, long before the election. When it was ignorant ass black people on social media telling us don't vote, I was like, that's ridiculous. Do you understand how deranged Trump is? You cannot let somebody like that have that type of power. He's just going to get worse. So this is why there's a call for him to be removed from office. Absolutely, he should be. Okay, absolutely, he should be removed from office. So let's jump into this. We'll go to the phone lines in just a second here. We got some clips lined up for you also. Now, we're here Monday through Friday, 11 p.m. to 12 midnight Eastern Standard Time on Mondays. Sundays, we're here 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I've been doing Sundays almost 5 years now on 9:10 a.m. Superstation WFDF. Sundays, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then as of October 12th, 2020, we're on Monday through Friday, okay? All right, so I want to look at this first article quickly here. Then we'll go to the phone lines. FBI, NYPD told Capitol Police about possibility of violence before riot, senior officials say. Now, the FBI visited more than a dozen extremists before the rally last week to urge them not to travel to Washington, D.C., senior law enforcement officials said. If you watch the reporting on MSNBC, and they may have the clip here in the article, Frank Figliuzzi is former deputy assistant to the FBI dealing with counterterrorism. And he talked about this also, what his sources are telling him. He said the FBI is monitoring, it was 12 of the baddest white supremacists who were planning to be there January 6th. The FBI went and talked to them directly, and he said they did what's called a walk and talk. Based upon his sources, he said they did what's called a walk and talk. A walk and talk means, he said, it means that these people are under surveillance and they're being surveilled to get enough evidence on them to actually arrest them. He said, but a walk and talk goes like this. The FBI shows up at your front door, and they say, "We've been watching you. You're under surveillance." And he said that these people were told if they go to Washington D.C. on January 6th, then that would probably be enough evidence to arrest them if they go. And he said these 12 people, these were supposed to be the people who were going to be really organizing and leading the insurrection. And he said they did not show up because the FBI intercepted them. And he said that what took place January 6th, it was planned to be much worse. But because these 12 leaders were intercepted, it wasn't as bad as it could have been. Now, the FBI and the New York City Police Department passed information to U.S. Capitol Police about the possibility of violence during the protests Wednesday against the counting of the Electoral College vote, and the FBI even visited more than a dozen extremists already under investigation to urge them not to travel to Washington, senior law enforcement officials said. The previously unreported details undercut the assertion. The previously unreported details undercut the assertion by a top FBI official that officials had no indication that violence was a possibility. And they add to questions about what intelligence authorities had reviewed before the Capitol riot, which led to the death of an officer and 4 other people. But also we hear that a off-duty U.S. Capitol Police officer, I think it is, has committed suicide as well. So we're going to get more details on that also, including, so we also know there was a rioter, there was a woman who was shot and killed by police, but that's because she was trying to enter the chambers there and break through, and they shot it. Now, one of the things that we've been talking about this past week, and I know y'all want to weigh in on this, is that if this was Black Lives Matter, and they would look, if you go to msnbc.com, okay, and you look at the pictures of NBC News, and they show you the wide shot, it's thousands of these white supremacist insurrectionists all up on the steps, all on the balcony, all this stuff. Okay, it's been the last probably the last 48 hours or so, probably Friday, Saturday, and then new video released on Sunday, that we really get to see how devastating this attack was. And Trump incited this, and Rudy Giuliani, but really Trump, because Trump is there. They had a rally at the White House. He sent them to the Capitol building. He said, "I will be there with you." He didn't go to the Capitol building. Apparently, he went and watched his own TV. This is how demonic he is. But he was sick when he ran in 2016. The signs were there. People didn't want to see the signs. The signs were there in 2016. So we have to learn from this, because we can never let something like this happen again. And as I said before, in 2016, some people got mad at me. I told you, I really don't give a damn. I don't care. We African Americans have to understand self-preservation. We have to understand how to identify threats and keep them from out of office, and reduce their ability to do harm to us. So you have people on social media in 2016 saying, "Oh, Hitler ain't gonna do nothing for Black people, blah, blah, blah." It's not always about what somebody can do for you. It's also understanding how to block and stop what people are trying to do to you. Trump had an anti-Black agenda in 2016, if you understood his rhetoric and his policies. He had an anti-Black, I mean, this is the same guy that ran on the birther. This is the same guy who was the leader of the birther movement for 5 years. And then, I mean, and then we see that 2 weeks ago, he vetoed the National Defense and Authorization Act, which is the bill's $741 billion bill that's tied to funding for the military. It's not the total funding for the military. A lot of the bill has to do with policy, but it's the $741 billion bill. Well, there was two main reasons why he vetoed the bill. One of them was because he was against renaming military bases that are named after Confederate soldiers and Confederate generals. Well, these are traitors to the Union. If you actually understand history, these were traitors to the Union who took up arms against the Union to overthrow the U.S. government. Oh, you mean like those traitors did? Like those traitors tried to do January 6th that he sent to the U.S. Capitol building? You mean like that? And then you have one of those traitors inside the U.S. Capitol building with the Confederate battle flag of Northern Virginia? That insurgence that took place, that breach that took place, that's the first time the U.S. Capitol building has been breached like that since the War of 1812. And that was the British that did that in War of 1812, 1812 to 1814. That was the British who did that. So then you got, well, where are these black Trump supporters that told us to vote for Trump November 3rd? Where are they now? Well, I haven't heard from a whole lot of them. What are they saying about that? Because I guarantee you, if they were there with a Black Lives Matter shirt on, yeah, okay. The other thing is, those domestic terrorist traitors built a gallows and put a hangman's noose on it. They built did y'all see this? There was a gallows with a hangman's noose on it, and some of them were yelling, "Hang Mike Pence," the vice president, because Mike Pence didn't go along with trying to throw out electoral college votes because he doesn't have the authority to do it. That's what he's trying to tell Trump. Trump doesn't understand the U.S. Constitution. Elections have consequences. I'm telling you, we can never, ever let something like this happen again. Period. Let's go to the phone lines. Let's go to line one. Thanks for holding. Let's see who we have here. We've got Stuart. Is Stuart still on the line?
This is Aiden. Can you hear me?
Okay, we've got Aiden. Aiden, welcome to the African History Network show. Thanks for holding. Tell us where you're calling from, Aiden.
I'm calling from Detroit, Michigan.
Detroit? All right, go ahead.
My question, did you see the pics posted on Instagram showing the mob surrounding the sister? They asked her, did she vote for Trump? She said no.
That was in Los Angeles. That was Los Angeles. I posted an article about it. Yeah, that was in Los Angeles. Yeah, she was assaulted. She was yeah, I think that was Los Angeles. She was assaulted, ultimately saved. It was a white guy, appears, that grabbed her and took her out of there. She was ultimately saved, but she was assaulted. And see, so the other part of this, Aiden, I'm glad you brought that up. The other part of this was on January 6th, there were Trump supporters protesting in various cities across the country. There were also some of them that went to state capitol buildings also. So the Trump administration had, now FBI Director Christopher Wray testified. I think it was in Congress. I think it was for the Homeland Security Committee or one of them. But he testified that domestic terrorism is like the biggest threat to America, something like that. Okay, this is an example of what we're talking about. And Trump, and also Attorney General William Barr. See, Attorney General William Barr, former Attorney General now, has not focused on domestic terrorism, especially white domestic terrorism. He has not been focusing on that. But this is the same guy who didn't think systemic racism and policing existed. Former Attorney General William Barr. Go ahead with your comment, Aiden.
Yeah, I was remembering and it was a post the FBI gave out years back.
Yeah.
To the threat of America, and they said that the highest threat is a white European male.
Mm-hmm.
They had put it down as African Americans, had us as labs,
Mm-hmm.
stating that this is what the FBI report stated, that an event, a major event, like a sports event, would actually disrupt our protests, like NBA playoffs, silly things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So this is how they look at us. They look at us as not much of a threat because they feel, we already know that they'll waste us. But their main threat is their own people.
Well, the main threat is white are these domestic terrorists, especially white domestic terrorists, and because a lot of these groups, they're monitoring them. Now, there's one of the hindrances is there are no real domestic terrorist laws, and this is something that's been talked about the past couple of days. Congress needs to pass domestic terrorist laws, but from the experts are saying it's a slippery slope because you could have a rogue president who just labels a group as domestic terrorists because they are his adversaries and they're not domestic terrorists, and it causes an escalation in investigations, etc. But Congress definitely has to take this up, but they're trying to balance protections when it comes to surveillance of U.S. citizens. They're trying to balance protections with that, and at the same time fight against domestic terrorism. So, but
might I add that there's protection for European rule, because if that's the case, one reason to me why they didn't write a law is because they could have went after George Bush Jr. Bush Jr. They could have went after many presidents. They could have went after the CIA. They could have
what do you mean?
Entities in this country, and they could have. So all America, mainly Europeans.
Well, no. See, the difference is the difference is they didn't have a president that encouraged this type of behavior. See, Trump has emboldened these people. At one of the debates with Joe Biden, Donald Trump told the Proud Boys to stand back and stand by. He didn't say stand down. He didn't denounce them. So when he said stand back and stand by, they took that. They started printing T-shirts with that slogan on it. They took that as encouragement. They took that as him saying, "I'm on your side." And the Proud Boys were there at the insurrection. Some of them were there at the insurrection. The Proud Boys, the Boogaloo Boys,
right,
all these whites, hold on just a second, just Aiden, hold on for a minute, Aiden, hold on for a minute, can you hear me? Hold on for a minute. Trump has emboldened. You have the person in the highest office in the land who's emboldened these white supremacists and emboldened many of their thoughts and made people feel comfortable with their white supremacy, made people feel comfortable with their bigotry. Go ahead with your last comment. I have to get these other comments.
I would say he made them remember, because they were just as savage even before Trump was born.
You said they were what?
They were just as savage before Trump was born. Trump just only came as a reminder to them to not just sit still idly and remember
but this is something on a whole nother level. See, previous presidents didn't have 88 million Twitter followers. This is something on a whole nother level that he's encouraged. The previous presidents like Woodrow Wilson, he was a white supremacist, but they didn't have social media back in 1914 or 1915 when he had a screening of the movie The Birth of the Nation at the White House. They ain't had social media back then. This is something on a whole nother level.
But they were still all on one page.
Well, you had many Europeans. You had many Europeans on one page, but this, we have to understand, this is something on a whole nother level right now. But all right, thanks for your call. All right, who we have next, Jaden? Do we still have Stewart? We lost Stewart. All right, who we have next is James. All right. Okay, hey James, welcome to the African History Network show. Tell us where you're calling from, James. Thanks for holding.
I'm calling from Ann Arbor.
Oh, Ann Arbor, Michigan. Okay, go ahead.
Hey man, I agree. Like Trump's has done an adequate job of like kind of putting these fires out. All these kind of little racist, actually big racist fires have been happening the last few years. But I think there's other things going on. There's like underlying things in the economy that are exacerbating this.
Like
because
what?
if you look at Nazi Germany, when all this stuff happened in Nazi Germany with Hitler, there was two things that preceded it. They had the World War I that destroyed the economy of Germany, and then you had the stock market crash, 1929 here in the U.S., and that created a worldwide recession. And then the same thing happened in Germany. All the German middle class, with all their kind of incomes going away for them and their kids, they got angry and they didn't understand why the things were happening, the stock market, and how all the high finance works, and they turned on the Jews. They said, "Well,
right,
so the Jews have money and they're doing okay." And
so
and I think there's
so what you're saying. There's we've talked about that here before, and there's some that's partly contributing to it, dealing with economics. This part of it that's racism. One of the things is that Trump has demonized immigrants, and you have what's called the othering of other people. So he's saying they're the reason why you don't have jobs. They're taking your jobs, things like that. So I'm going to inflict cruelty on these people for you. But what he doesn't talk about, exactly. what he doesn't talk about is how automation has eliminated millions of middle class jobs. Automation from automation from companies like General Electric. Okay, what he doesn't talk about is how he profits from the labor of undocumented immigrants. So what you have here now is important for people to go look at the article, and I'll let you finish in just a second, and we got to get these other calls because we're coming up on the break. It's important for people to look at the article from the Atlantic, theatlantic.com, from 2017. This is like about May 2017. And it talks about how it was cultural anxiety, not economic issues, that were the driving factor for many Trump supporters who just had a high school diploma, college uneducated, so just a high school diploma, white people. And it dealt with how it was the fear of the browning of America and cultural anxiety, the fear that, so a lot of people, not all white people, and my listeners know I've said this before, not all white people have this fear, but you have many white people who have this fear, and it's being fed to them a lot by right-wing conservative media, Fox News, now Newsmax, things like this. But you have a lot of white people who fear the year 2043, when demographers and U.S. Census Bureau predict that white people will no longer be the majority population in this country. And you've
also had, I think you also had Fox News. You know, in the mid-'90s, conservatives, they made a switch. They were kind of socially conservative and fiscally conservative. Then they started shilling for rich people. That became their primary. They became the party that makes excuses and shills for the rich. You know,
right.
And I think that they did a switch, and a lot of people didn't notice that. And I think that when people don't understand why things are changing, why are rich people getting so many tax breaks now, and poor people paying so much taxes?
Right.
Because finance has lobbied our government to give all rich people a break and to let them do what they want with the economy. And that's where the frustration comes in with people. They don't understand exactly what's going on. And then what they do is they go towards the weakest part of the people on the bottom, the poor people, minorities, and they go after them because they think we don't understand what's going on, but it's got to be something to do with these people. So we're going after, and that's kind of what's going on now. I think there's a lot of manipulation on the economy. People not getting pensions anymore. They're not getting secure jobs. They're getting the jobs out there, but they don't pay a lot. People work two jobs now. You know, they pay rent.
Right. So the same. So the what's taking place, and the other part of this is that a lot of these people are being kept ignorant. They're ignorant of the U.S. Constitution, ignorant of history, ignorant of law, and they're being purposely kept ignorant so they can be lied to. So you had a lot of these people, a lot of these insurrectionists who actually thought that Mike Pence had the power to throw out electoral college votes at the certification on January 6th. That's a ceremony. He doesn't have the authority to throw out electoral college votes. But see, people have to understand what just happened. That ceremony takes place every 4 years. It's usually not covered like that by the media. People don't pay attention to that. It's ceremony. The electoral college votes on the first Monday following the second Wednesday in December. The electoral college voted December 14th. People don't pay attention to the certification.
Yeah, I think a lot of what's going on though is the people that are doing these things, they don't understand those details about.
This is what I'm saying. This is what I'm saying. They're ignorant of history. Yeah. They're ignorant of the Constitution, ignorant of law, and they're being purposely kept ignorant so they can be manipulated. So Trump kept lying to them over and over again and saying, Mike Pence does the right thing. Mike Pence can stop this. Pence told Trump, I don't have the authority to do that. Okay. But a lot of these people, especially those carrying the flag of the traitors, the flag of the Confederacy, are ignorant and purposely being kept ignorant. Okay. So they can be manipulated. All right. Thanks for calling, James. We're up against a commercial break. Keep listening, okay? Thanks for calling. So early in the was it last week? Oh, I'm re-airing this segment of the African History Network show we did this back in I think it was earlier 2020 or 2019 something. It was January 2020. And it deals with Abraham Lincoln signing the Emancipation Proclamation, January 1st, 1863. Watch that clip. I've been re-airing it. It's about a 27-minute segment of the African History Network show. You actually get to see me in the studio. This seems like a long time ago. I haven't been to the studio, the real studio, since I think, was it May, since the stay-at-home order, the shelter in from Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer, who was threatened by white supremacists. They wanted to kill her also, Trump supporters. But one of the questions I asked, so it deals with the Civil War, and I asked this question. This hits on something James was talking about. I asked the question, when you study the Civil War, the question we should ask ourselves is, how did the wealthy white people in the Confederacy in the South, in the southern states that seceded from the Union, how did these wealthy white people convince poor white people to go risk their lives and fight in the Civil War? Because the majority of the people, not all of them, but the majority of the people who fought on behalf of the South in the Civil War were poor white men. Okay, the majority of them didn't own slaves. You have some. You have a few wealthy ones that fight, but the majority of the white men who fight on behalf of the South in the Civil War are like poor white men. They're not the big slave owners. They don't own the big plantations. Most of them are not the wealthy. Okay, and not only that, there was a revolt that took place because of okay, we're coming up on a break. I got to finish this story on the other side of the break. You listen to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM Superstation Future Radio. I'm Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes. All right, stand by. Stand by, everybody. They're playing the music, telling me to go to break. I got to tell you this story on the other side of the break. How's everybody doing? Hey, okay, if you like this type of information, you can support the African History Network, $, TheAHNShow through Cash App. $ the AHN show through Cash App, also through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN show, paypal.me/the AHN show. So because we're here 6 days a week, that definitely helps out. And I got to go tomorrow and I got to buy a new laptop because my hard drive crashed on this other one. That's why I'm on this old laptop. And that's why it doesn't look good. So if you want to donate 15, 25, 50, 100, whatever it is, $5, whatever, we definitely appreciate that. I'm gonna tell the story on the other side of the break. This is taking place. We saw it. Most of those people out there protesting the insurrection, okay, most of them are poor white people. Some of them losing their jobs. Most of them are ignorant of the Constitution, and they're being manipulated. A lot of them are white supremacists, things like that. But you got to go back and ask the question: how did they become radicalized? Because something that's being talked about now is the radicalization of these white supremacists. The radicalization, just like we talk about people who join ISIS being radicalized. These people are being radicalized online. Economics is a grievance, but then with the economics is the othering of other people. So it's black people taking your job, is Hispanics taking your job, things like that. But the fact of the matter is that we're all being manipulated by the same 1%. And we're all being manipulated by the same 1%. Some of the very same Republicans in the U.S. Senate, like Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin, some of the very same Republicans who voted for the $1.4 trillion tax cut that gave about 83% of the benefits to the top 10%. These are some of the same ones who are against giving a one-time $2,000 check to Americans who've been devastated by coronavirus. Survival check. They're a one-time $2,000 survivors. They're against that. They want to talk about fiscal conservative, but you ain't talking about it then. Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM, the Superstation of Future Radio. Yeah, I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It is Sunday, January 10th, 2021, and we're live. So right before the break, we were talking about, in the first hour, we were dealing with the insurrection that took place by domestic terrorists on Wednesday, January 6, 2021 at the U.S. Capitol building. And there was thousands of them there. Go to NBCnews.com, MSNBC, go to abcnews.go.com, cbsnews.com. Look at the wide shot of the picture. There were thousands of them that stormed the U.S. Capitol building, okay? And I was telling this story, I was talking about referencing a segment from the African History Network show we did in January of 2020. And this deals with Abraham Lincoln signing the Emancipation Proclamation, January 1st, 1863. Now, the Emancipation Proclamation did not free the slaves. And you can go to archives.gov, National Archives, and read it. And it has all these exceptions. It's the border states like Maryland, Kentucky, Delaware, they were allowed to keep their slaves until basically, you know, like the Civil War ends, et cetera. And then it also says territories that were in rebellion that are brought back into the Union, they're allowed to keep their slaves also. So it has all these exceptions. But the question I asked was, we should ask the question, when we studied the U.S. Civil War, 1861 to 1865, we should ask the question, the majority of the slave owners, the majority of the people who fought in the U.S. Civil War were poor white people. They were not the wealthy slave owners, okay? So we have to ask the question, how did the wealthy white people convince poor white people to go fight in the Civil War and risk their lives to fight for something that they didn't have? When you read the statements of secession, this is why you have to understand history, because most of those ignorant white supremacists out there, those domestic terrorists that were out there storming the U.S. Capitol building, assaulting U.S. Capitol police officers, talking about hanging Vice President Mike Pence. Okay, that was an insurrection there. We've never seen something like that happen before. And like I said, that's the first time the U.S. Capitol building has been breached since the War of 1812. And that was the British that did that. So we have to ask the question, how did the wealthy white people convince the poor white people to go risk their lives and fight in the U.S. Civil War? Because when you read the statements of secession from Texas and Mississippi and these different states that secede from the Union, South Carolina, they talk about how slavery is essential to their way of life and essential to their wealth, etc. Okay, what they told the poor white people was, if the slaves are free, they're going to take your jobs. If the slaves are free, so we want to maintain this way of life. We want to maintain slavery. Slavery is essential to our way of life. Hey, if the slaves are free, they're going to take your jobs. They were too dumb to realize the slaves were already doing their jobs, and they were doing it for free. There were at least 262 skills, trades, and crafts that African people had in this country from 1619 to 1865. There are at least 262 skills, trades, and crafts that African people had in this country from 1619 to 1865. The slaves were already doing your job, but they were doing it for free. But they didn't realize that because they think they're on the white team, right? So this is what I'm saying. This is the 1% manipulating everybody. So in the book, The Other Slaves, Mechanics, Artisans, what's the name of that book? The Other Slaves, Mechanics, Artisans, Craftsmen, something like that. James Newton and Ronald Lewis, 1978. Research that book. It breaks down all the skills, trades, and crafts that African people had in this country for like 246 years. And I came across it at the Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History here in Detroit. And when you go through the main exhibit and Still We Rise, and then you come out on the other, you know, they have a replica of a slave ship. And then you come out on the other side and you see a statue, you know, you see statues of Frederick Douglass and Harriet Tubman, things like that. There's a big display on the wall, and it's a display that shows all these skills, trades, and crafts that we had in this country from 1619 to 1865. So there's a sign up there that says you can't take pictures. So I went home and got a pen and a pad, and I came back and I spent an hour writing them down. That's how I know that there were 262, because I numbered them, because they didn't have them numbered on the display. I wrote them all down, spent an hour writing them all down, and I numbered them, and I'm trying to find my copy of them right here. This is my stack from the online class that I teach, and I'm trying to find, because I made a few copies, but anyway, it may be one of these file folders I have here. I thought it was in this stack, but anyway. So yeah, they told them basically, hey, if the slaves are free, they're going to take your jobs. Now, those watching on, let me see if we can turn the screen share on, and the computer doesn't freeze up on me because it's the old computer. There's an article here from Syracuse.com, okay, Syracuse University. And this makes the point that I'm talking about. Let's turn on the screen share. Name of this article, for those in the radio listening audience, I want you to research this. It's called "White Mobs Worried About Losing Jobs to Freed Slaves Attacked African Americans in Syracuse." White mobs worried about losing jobs to freed slaves attacked African Americans in Syracuse. Now, this article is from February 23rd, 2012. It was updated March 22nd, 2019. And it talks about how one of the darkest moments during the Civil War occurred not on a battlefield, but in the streets of New York City for 3 days in July of 1863. Now, this is still during the Civil War. Civil War doesn't end until June 1865. For 3 days in July of 1863, crowds of rioters, mostly working class white men, roamed the streets, looting, setting fires, attacking government buildings. Uh-oh. Hold on. You mean they attacked government buildings during the Civil War? Groups of working class white men? Looting, setting fires, attacking government buildings, and eventually assaulting and killing almost any African American they encountered. It was sparked by the start of a U.S. military draft. Now, this is a U.S. military draft during the Civil War. Okay? Wealthy men, let's be clear. Let me help you out, Syracuse. Wealthy white men. That's what we're talking about. You ain't talking about wealthy Eskimos. You're not talking about wealthy African Americans. You're talking about wealthy white men. Wealthy white men could buy their way out by paying a $300 fee. So the draft targeted primarily working class. No, let me help you out. Working class poor white men. Wealthy white men who said, hold on. We're going to send the poor white men to go fight this war. I ain't taking my ass out there to fight. No, we ain't going to do that. I'm going to pay this $300 fine because I'm not going to be drafted. You go send those poor white people out there. Let them go fight. Donald Trump sent the insurgents, he sent these domestic terrorists to the U.S. Capitol building. He said, I'll be there with you. He took his ass back to the White House and watched it on TV. Come on, man. Come on. Gang recognizes gang. Go run that on somebody else. But I warned you about this traitor-in-chief in 2016, long before the election. People didn't want to listen to me. They said, oh, Hillary this, crime bill that, all this. I said, no, do you understand how dangerous this fool will be in the White House? Bet you understand now. Let's go back to the phone lines. 313-778-7600. 313-778-7600. It's the calling number if you have a question or comment. The African History Network show. We're here every now. You know, I gotta give it up to owner Kevin Adele. He let me come on the air. This is my 5th year. You know, they don't censor me, nothing like that. I mean, we have to follow FCC regulations. You know, I never got a phone call. Hey, you can't say that, blah blah blah. And you know, let's go back to the phone lines here. He said, okay. I said, hey, you knew what it was when you offered me the deal 5 years ago. You know, you knew how I was then. So hey. All right, let's go to, is this Marathon line? I don't know which line it's on. Hey, Marathon, welcome to the African History Network show. Thanks for holding. Tell us where you're calling from, Marathon.
So, what do you think the powers to be have in store for President Trump when he's released from office?
Right, hey, Marathon, are you on a speakerphone or something? Your voice sounds muffled.
Yeah.
Okay, can you take it off a speakerphone? Because that doesn't.
I'd like to know what you think the powers would be have in store for President Trump after he's released from office.
I don't know about the powers that be. Now I know that prosecution is coming for him. I don't know about the powers that be, but I know the indictments, prosecution, all that stuff is coming for him because the protection of the office of the presidency will be gone because of the 1973 Department of Justice memo that says a sitting president cannot be indicted. Okay, now that hasn't been tested in court, but the Department of Justice has been operating based upon that. That all goes away come January 21st. And the indictments are coming. If you look at, there was an article from the Washington Post in a couple of weeks ago, talking about in Manhattan, District Attorney, Prosecutor Cy Vance has hired forensic accountants to investigate Trump's financial records. Forensic accountants. Okay, now you don't go hiring forensic accountants if you don't think there's something there. So and then also we have to keep in mind that when Michael Cohen went through his prosecution and all that, and he testified in front of Congress twice, it came out that there are, if I remember correctly, the number 14 unsealed indictments in it's Manhattan or one of those U.S. attorney's offices there in New York. 14 unsealed indictments. When Trump leaves the White House, I think they're going to be unsealed. I think they're 14 sealed indictments. So we don't know who's being indicted. When he leaves the White House, right. I think we're going to find out.
Right. Okay. Thank you for taking my call.
All right. No problem, man. All right. Keep you listening. Keep listening. And see, and people have to understand, this is why Trump has been fighting tooth and nail to stay in office. He knows they're coming for him. He's been fighting tooth and nail, because when you listen to Michael Cohen and people that like really know Trump, they say the thing he fears the worst is going to prison. His financial records are coming out. His tax returns are going to come out. All this stuff, all the connections between Russia, all this stuff is going to come out. Oh, we're going to have a good time. You know, remember Fat Albert? Nah, gonna have a good time. All this stuff about to come out. All right. Okay, so we'll go back to the phone lines in just a few minutes here. Just stand by, John. 313-778-7600 is the call. 313-778-7600 is the calling number. Now, I've only been able to get through one article that I plan to get through. Look, I got all this stuff. I went through all this planning. I ain't been through none of this stuff yet. But I've been covering this since Wednesday when it happened. So some of this, there's some new information, but you know, we may not get to that till Monday, because people are calling in and I want to take callers, things like this. And some of our listeners don't know that I'm on 6 days a week now, because I've been on Sundays for 5 years. So they know Sunday 9 p.m. to tune in. And I don't know that. So let me try to get through. We'll come to you in a few minutes, John. Let me try to get through some of this. I got all these video clips lined up. I ain't been through none of that stuff yet. But But very quickly here, I want to go back to this article. I'm a historian, but I'm not just a historian. I also study law, politics, African history, African American history, etc. Okay. The name of this article is "White Mobs Worried About Losing Jobs to Freed Slaves Attacked African Americans in Syracuse." All right. Now, this is during the, and part of this, what they're talking about is during the U.S. Civil War. So they're talking about this draft riot that took place in July 1863. For 3 days in July 1863, crowds of rioters, mostly working class white men, roamed the streets, looting, setting fires, attacking government buildings like they just did January 6th, and eventually assaulting and killing almost any African American they encountered. It was sparked by the start of a U.S. military draft. Wealthy white men, they say wealthy men, but I'm helping you out, Syracuse. You really mean wealthy white men, okay? Wealthy white men could buy their way out by paying a $300 fee. It's a fine saying, hey, I don't want to be drafted. I'm going to pay this $300 fee. We're going to let these poor white people go fight this war. No, I ain't going to fight. No. Send the poor white people. Let them go fight. So the draft targeted primarily working class white men to go fight in the Civil War, while wealthy white men paid a $300 fine, saying, I ain't going, no, we ain't going for that. Yeah, patriotism, yeah, love the flag, all that. Now you take your behind out there, go fight that. I'm gonna sit back here and drink mint juleps, okay, and play with my wife and the mistress and these slave women. You go out there and fight. A number of these common laborers, often Irish immigrants, were already upset with federal authorities. The years earlier, Emancipation Proclamation, January 1st, 1863, the years earlier Emancipation Proclamation had changed the war into one to end slavery. Had changed because the Civil War was really fought to bring the South back into the Union. Freeing the slaves was not originally what the Civil War was about. It was about bringing the South seceded from the Union. The South was the economic engine of the Union, okay? And the Civil War was fought to bring the South back into the Union. March 1861, when Lincoln is inaugurated, at his inaugural address, Lincoln says he has no intention of freeing slaves in states that still have slavery. People don't see. Malcolm X talked about how Abraham Lincoln used freeing the slaves as a political football. He was correct, because make this a short story because we got to get back to the phone lines. But very quickly here, how you doing, John Ray? Very quickly here. There was an initial emancipation, September 22nd, 1862. September 22nd, 1862. That one was an ultimatum to the Confederacy. If you, the states and the territories in rebellion, if you do not come back into the Union by January 1st, 1863, we're going to set your slaves free. It's an ultimatum because it was a military strategy to rob the Confederacy of their asset, because they were using slaves to dig ditches, wash clothes, cook food, do all types of things. Use their 262 skills, trades, and crafts to benefit the Confederacy and to benefit the war effort. So they're trying to rob. Lincoln is trying to rob them of that asset. So then the Civil War shifts from trying to bring the South back into the Union to freeing the slaves. So you got a lot of white men saying, well, what are you doing? What are you doing? All right, we'll continue this on the other side of the break. 313-778-7600, 313-778-7600 is the call-in number. You listen to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM Superstation Future Radio. Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes. Stand by, everybody. If you like this type of information, also you could donate to the African History Network, $ the AHN show through Cash App, the AHN show through Cash App, then also through PayPal, paypal.me /the AHN show. Stand by real quick here. I'm trying to find some stuff. I just saw it. Which stack is this? Okay, that's the wrong stack. I think it was here. History. If we understood history, we would have seen Trump coming and would have stopped. Stand by. Okay, we're on commercial break. Everybody share this broadcast on social media platforms. How's everybody doing tonight? We got John Ray. We got John Ray. Post your information here also. People check out John Ray at workingwithjohnray.com, workingwithjohnray.com. He has some financial empowerment strategies for you to check out. One of them is called income shifting also. I'm trying to find this before we come back from break. Where the hell is this? Damn. Saw that. Is it in this stack here? I gotta organize all this. Oh, here it is right here. I had a lot of stuff organized, but I gotta spend some time to organize all these files again. Can y'all hear me? Can y'all hear me now? I think I had line 2 closed. Can you hear me? Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM, the Superstation Future Radio. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It is Sunday, January 10th. 2021. And we are live. Hope everybody is doing well, staying safe. We saw the insurrection that took place at the U.S. Capitol building, January 6, 2021. We've been talking about that. We've been dealing with some history, giving you some updates on what's going on also, and tying all this into history. Very quickly, I'm going to go back to this article, then we'll go to the phone lines. White mobs worried about losing jobs to freed slaves attacked African Americans in Syracuse. This was in 1863, July of 1863. You had the draft riots, okay, for 3 days in July 1863. Crowds of rioters, mostly working class white men, roamed the streets, looting, setting fires, attacking government buildings. Attacking government buildings and eventually assaulting and killing almost any African American they encountered. Now, this time, when they looted government buildings and assaulted African Americans, assaulted white people, you had at least one white police officer who died from injuries there. They were assaulting other U.S. Capitol officers, African American and white officers. This time, they were sent there by a traitorous president. Nobody saw this coming. Really? So the fear and anger was not limited to New York City. So let me back up. The year earlier in 1863, the Emancipation Proclamation had changed the war into one to end slavery, because originally that's not what the Civil War was about. It's about bringing the South back into the Union. They feared these white people, these white men who were out rioting and attacking African Americans, attacking government buildings, and they didn't want to be drafted to go and fight in the Civil War, and they didn't have $300 to pay the fine to avoid the draft like wealthy white men could and did. These poor white people feared millions of freed slaves would eventually compete with them for working class jobs. They feared that millions of freed slaves would eventually compete with them for working class jobs, because the skill level of African Americans was as good as most white men, or many times even better, because we were the ones dominating the skilled trades. This fear and anger was not limited to New York City. In Syracuse, on March 17, 1863, several dozen young men and boys were encouraged, whether by design or from a warped sense of using their St. Patrick's Day revelry as an excuse to assault local African Americans on the street. They often used clubs and stones. One victim was the son of the Reverend Jermaine Luguen, or Luguen, L-O-G-U-E-N, a former slave who was a leader in the city's Underground Railroad activity. Fortunately, no one was killed, and several white Syracuse citizens stepped forward and used their homes to shelter those being attacked. This included the teenage Luguen boy who was assaulted in Fayette Park. The riot followed closely on the heels of local elections held a week earlier, where Copperhead Democrats won most of the city's positions in a show of anti-Republican, anti-Lincoln, anti-war, and most likely a degree of anti-emancipation sentiment. It was stated that false rumors had been circulated among the local salt workers, S-A-L-T, local salt workers, prior to voting, that freed slaves were going to be sent north to take their jobs as salt boilers. Now, Donald Trump engages in the othering of other people, and he basically tells these people, oh, it's the undocumented immigrants taking your jobs, things like this. Why don't you crack down on the corporations that hire undocumented immigrants then, like yours? Oh, it's the 1% screwing over everybody. It's the 1% manipulating everybody. This is what I'm talking about. All right, let's go to the phone lines. Let's go back to the phone lines. Let's go to John. Hey, John, welcome to the African History Network show. John, tell us where you're calling from.
Okay, I'm calling from the east side of Detroit, Michigan.
East side of Detroit. All right. You moving on up.
That's right.
Moving on up like George and Wheezy to deluxe apartment in the sky on the east side. Go ahead.
Yeah. But listen, Jose, NASA, they put out a lie that it was China was interfering with this cloud and so forth. And come find out Nancy Pelosi, it was Russia. Russia was still engaged with Trump and was fine on Americans and so forth. And on the elections.
John, so you're talking about Russia being involved in the elections in 2020?
No. A few days ago, the FBI was caught Russia spying and interfering with the American judicial system and all this.
Okay.
And Trump tried to get ahead of them, and he told a lie that he was China. And Nancy Pelosi said, not they were Russia.
Oh, you're talking about the hacking. You're talking about the hacking of the databases, things like that took place. Okay, with the government agencies, U.S. government agencies. Okay, I understand. Yeah. So it's basically been determined, like the State Department and other agencies basically come to the conclusion that it was Russia, and Trump said, "Oh, it could be China," something to that effect. Yeah.
He did say it was China.
Yeah.
He most likely did.
Right.
And so I think when you're familiar with it, and you
yes.
about some folks who went up into the 1800s, did you know that Pope White was odd in the fact that the plantation people giving the men, black men, women, workers, they were getting more food. The food was almost and so forth.
Okay, you said they were arguing about getting more food. You said they were arguing about getting more food. When are you talking about? When are you talking about?
With the time you were discussing about what happened in
during the Civil War.
Before the Civil War, yeah.
Okay.
And there was complaint about it, and there was the other people who proposed in the big time plantation. They were selling the poor white because they were the one that was against it. Never was getting it so forth.
Okay.
And they said that they were getting more food and more information and knowledge of what to do than the white. The poor white was. It was a real gangster and criminal, and they was killing some of the white owners and so forth. And the poor white was now. The poor white was doing it.
Right. Okay. All right, John.
Not to put it on African Americans.
Okay.
I just want when you familiar with it and so forth.
Right.
You were describing the Civil War, and I said myself, you were talking a lot of knowledge, put down a lot of knowledge there. A lot of people didn't realize what was going on and so forth. Okay, but thank you.
All right, John. All right, thanks for calling in. All right. Okay. Let me get back to these articles quickly. We'll go back to the phone lines in just a minute here. Hold the line, Theo. I think we got Theo Broken from Hood Research Holdings. Just stand by. Jalen, we're gonna go to that first clip. I think it is. Let me see. And I was on Roland Martin Unfiltered also. We got to share that clip. So this is what we're gonna do. I want to go to that clip from Joanne Reed, MSNBC. I want to go to the clip with the U.S. Capitol Police officer. Let me know if you had that clip. She spoke to the U.S. You got that clip queued up?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna go to that in just a second here. Okay. So very quickly here. There's so much going on. I have so much information here. FBI, New York Police Department told Capitol Police about possibility of violence before riot, senior officials say. Okay, this is from NBCnews.com. This was NBC News broke this story. And the article goes on to say the previously unreported details undercut the assertion by a top FBI official that officials had no indication that violence was a possibility, and they add to questions about what intelligence authorities had reviewed before the Capitol riot, which led to the death of an officer which led to the death of an officer and 4 other people, including a rioter who was shot and killed by police. Now, quote, social media, now people, they had been planning this since December 14th. They were planning this on various social media platforms, including Twitter, Facebook. Donald Trump sent out, look, Rachel Maddow talked about this on Friday. This is how treacherous this is, okay? What I did was I took pictures of the screen of what he tweeted. He put this on Twitter. Let's look at this. He talked about January 6th, be there January 6th is going to be wild. To all those who have then let's see, let me scroll back here. Which date was this that he tweeted this? Let's look at before. Oh, now he tweeted this January 6, 2021, 3:01 p.m. These are the things and events that happen when a sacred landslide election victory is so unceremoniously and viciously stripped away from great patriots who have been badly and unfairly treated for so long. Go home with love and in peace. Remember this day forever. This is when, I think this is when he's telling them to go home or something after they did his bidding. But if we go back just very quickly here, if we go back and look at December 30th, 2020, Donald Trump tweeted January 6th, see you in DC. Then December 27th, 2020, he tweeted, see you in Washington, DC on January 6th. Don't miss it. Information to follow. December 20th, 2020, he tweeted, the Justice Department and the FBI have done nothing about the 2020 presidential election voter fraud, the biggest scam in our nation's history. Despite overwhelming evidence, they should be ashamed. History will remember, never give up. See everyone in DC on January 6th. They're talking about this rally that these white supremacists had been planning. And so you had the rally that he had and he spoke at, and Rudy Giuliani, Donald Trump Jr., Mo Brooks, Representative Mo Brooks. You had some right-wing members of Congress there. There was a rally at the White House, and then they sent these domestic terrorist insurgents to the U.S. Capitol building. Then also December 18th, 2020, Trump tweeted, Peter Navarro releases 36-page report alleging election fraud, more than sufficient to swing victory to Trump. A great report by Peter, statistically impossible to have lost the 2020 election. Big protests in DC on January 6th. Be there, will be wild. This is what Trump tweeted on his personal Twitter account that's been suspended forever. And he had 88 million followers. This is what he tweeted. He incited this on Twitter, but then at the rally, he incited them and sent them to the U.S. Capitol building. But just like the wealthy white man who benefited from the poor white man going to fight in the Civil War, and they paid a $300 fine, said, I'm not going fighting. He told them to go to the U.S. Capitol building, and he said, I'll be there with you, but he didn't go. He went back and watched it on TV. And a lot of them are being arrested, getting fired from their jobs, being hunted down by law enforcement. He's got the protection of Secret Service. Imagine that. I want to go to this clip here. This is from Joanne Reed, the Reed Report on MSNBC. She interviewed a retired African-American U.S. Capitol police officer. He had been a U.S. Capitol police officer, from my understanding, for about 37 years. And he gave his comments on what he saw and his expert opinion from being a U.S. Capitol police officer, and what was different about the way this group was handled as opposed to the way a group of Black Lives Matter activists would be handled. Let's go to this clip, Jalen.
Start with you first, Officer Jones. You spent 37 years in the Capitol Police Department. Your daughter tweeted at me today, which is how I was connected with you, and I spoke with you earlier. And my question to you now is the same one I had then. As a veteran Capitol Police officer, when you saw what happened yesterday, in your view, what went wrong?
I was appalled by what I saw yesterday. There was no reinforcement. Normally, at a situation like that, a riot of that magnitude, we would have Park Police, Metropolitan Police, and Capitol Police join together. I think if that was a black organization, they would never got to the steps.
And you said that earlier today when I spoke with you. You said that normally if there's going to be a big march, you talked about a Farrakhan march where 4 people were coming with Minister Louis Farrakhan from the Nation of Islam, and there were like phalanxes of people set up, and they were meeting, talking about what to do. In this case, the Capitol Police, according to reporting from the Associated Press, they rejected offers of federal help. This is what the AP writes. 3 days before the pro-President Donald Trump riot at the Capitol, the Pentagon asked the U.S. Capitol Police if it needed National Guard manpower. And as the mob descended on the building Wednesday, Justice Department leaders reached out to offer up FBI agents. The police turned them down both times, according to a defense official and 2 people familiar with the matter. Would that have been normal? You said that over the course of the time you were a senior member of that department, there were marches and there were things planned, neo-Nazis coming. Is it normal to turn down help from the federal government?
Number one, no, it's not normal to turn down help. Normally, the chief will make a recommendation, then you go to the police board. Police board is made up of the sergeant arm of the House, sergeant arm of the Senate, and architect of the Capitol. Something went wrong because normally we would have the help. No one would have crossed that line or even got towards the steps of the Capitol.
Okay, so he said if that was like a black organization, they would not have even gotten to the steps of the Capitol. All right. So we're going to continue this on the other side of the break. I'm going to go to that Roland Martin clip next, Jalen, after I take this call. Let's go to Theo Broughton here, who's been holding on the line. Theo from Hood Research. Welcome to the African History Network show. Tell us where you're calling from, Theo.
Well, thank you, and happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday.
I was calling to tell you what I have thought about January the 6th at the Capitol Mall in Washington, D.C. It's been said that it was an inside job. It's been said that it was bigger than Donald Trump. Yeah. Donald Trump's father was a part of the Ku Klux Klan.
Well, so
Donald Trump was raised in that kind of
so Theo, let me ask you a question. Now, I've read the article from the Washington Post about Trump's father being arrested at a Ku Klux Klan rally. That was some years ago. Yeah. Well, his father's dead. This was back decades ago.
I understand. What I'm saying to you is Donald Trump was raised by a man who was a part of the Ku Klux Klan. Arthur David Duke, the leader of the Ku Klux Klan decades ago, was interviewed in Louisiana on television. He didn't care who heard him. He said we're turning in our sheets for three-piece suits, military suits, police suits, judge robes, etc., etc. And over the decades, they have infiltrated all of those areas. Now, on this,
you're talking about the law enforcement, yeah. You're talking about
they've infiltrated all of that. So it was an inside job. That's some of the infiltration from David Duke and the Ku Klux Klan over decades. It's not something they did overnight. Okay. Now, it seems to me that part of the group that went to the Capitol were the kind of people who follow Jim Jones. They're just mindless people.
Yeah, they've been radicalized.
Trump said to them, they believed it.
Right.
And the other part of that group was thugs, like the ones who run around in the woods in the state of Michigan, the ones who wanted to murder the governor here and the governor in Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
And we have had some trial runs, one here, one Wisconsin, and one I think was in Minnesota as well. So they had practice runs on what they were going to do on January the 6th.
Yeah, you had different groups attacking state capitals, like here in Lansing, Michigan.
Right.
Yeah, you had that leading up to that. And then they organized on. They organized the thing that set it off was the real thing that set it off was the certification of the electoral college voting on December 14th. Because after that, then they really started organizing. Then they started putting out January 6th. Because what happened was Trump said that they could win it in the electoral college. The electoral college would save him, and the electoral college voted December 14th. When the electoral college didn't save him, then the last hope they had was the certification of the electoral college votes by the joint session of Congress January 6th. So then they started putting this out about January 6th, and it's going to be a rally. But on these social media platforms, they were planning violence on January 6th.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And he assumed that Pence was going to do what he said as well. But the other group of people, like many of them, it has been reported, came from the state of Michigan. Of course, the Grand Wizards base was here in the state of Michigan for a while as well. And was it Holly, Michigan? I think it was.
Yeah, I think so.
So they have not gone away. They have not. They've not gone away. And there is the same, as you were saying, control desire for the United States of America. So when they got the mindless group that follow Jim Jones, that type of people, to go with them to Washington, D.C., that's all the numbers that they had. There was thousands of people there. And I do believe that there are some who, from their ranks, infiltrated the policing units in Washington, D.C., at the Capitol and on the ground.
Yeah, there were reports of there was reports of law enforcement officers in the crowd flashing badges, gaining access to the U.S. Capitol building. They were part of the insurrection, part of the rioters, and their various police departments are investigating this also across the country because they were coming from different parts of the country. Okay, hey, I gotta run. Call back tomorrow night, okay? Call back tomorrow night.
Okay.
All right, thanks. Thank you. All right. So the article I was talking about from the Washington Post, I want people to read this article here. In 1927, Donald Trump's father was arrested after a Klan riot in Queens. In 1927, Donald Trump's father was arrested after a Klan riot in Queens. This is from the Washington Post. This was the article I was referring to, February 29th, 2016, by Philip Bump, okay? And it talks about, he was written, let me see if we scroll down. I can scroll past some of this. But it says that this was in 1927, on Memorial Day 1927, brawls erupted in New York, led by sympathizers of the Italian fascist movement and the Ku Klux Klan. In the fascist brawl, which took place in the Bronx, 2 Italian men were killed by anti-fascists. In Queens, 1,000 white-robed Klansmen marched through the Jamaican neighborhood, eventually spurring an all-out brawl in which 7 men were arrested. One of those arrested was Fred Trump of 175-24 Devonshire Road in Jamaica. This is this was his address. Okay, Fred Trump died years ago, Donald Trump's father. So one of those men arrested. This was at the brawl. Now, this is Donald Trump. It goes on to say this is Donald Trump's father. Trump had a brother named Fred, but he wasn't born until more than a decade later. The Fred Trump at Devonshire Road was the Fred C. Trump who lived there with his mother, according to the 1930 census. The predication for the Klan March, according to a flyer passed around Jamaica beforehand, was that, quote, native-born Protestant Americans, end quote, were being assaulted by Roman Catholic police of New York City. Liberty and democracy have been trampled upon. The flyer went on to say, when native-born Protestant Americans dare to organize to protect one flag, the American flag, one school, the public school, one language, the English language, end quote. All right. It's not clear from the context what role Fred Trump played in the brawl. The news article simply notes that 7 men were arrested in the, quote, near, N-E-A-R, near riot of the parade, end quote, all of whom were represented by the same lawyers. A contemporaneous article from the Daily Star newspaper back at the time, notes that Trump was detained, Fred Trump was detained, quote, on a charge of refusing to disperse from a parade when ordered to do so, end quote. Now, at this, I've read this before. I don't know for certain if Fred Trump was a member of the Ku Klux Klan. It appears he was at this rally and arrested. And the reason why I say that is because the Ku Klux Klan is a fraternal organization. There is a recruitment process. There is a initiation process. So I don't know if Fred Trump was a member of the Ku Klux Klan. See, I've read the bylaws of the Knights of the Ku Klux Klan. There's a whole process. So I don't know if he was actually a member of the Klan or just at the rally. So I don't. That's why you never heard me say, "Oh, Fred Trump was a member of the Ku Klux Klan." I don't know that for sure. Now, if anybody has evidence, you can email me and let me know, and I like to see that. But I state what I know. I don't know for certain he was an actual member of the Ku Klux Klan, which is a fraternal organization. I don't know. All right, but you can read this article here about him being arrested back in 1927. In 1927, Donald Trump's father was arrested after a Klan riot in Queens. Okay, let me see here. For instance, well, no, I won't give that example, but he may or may have not been a member, but I want to know if he was actually a member of the Klan, which is something on a whole nother level. Anybody can attend a rally, anything like that. We know he was discriminating against African Americans and Hispanics at the apartments in Manhattan and things like this, sued by 1973 by Richard Nixon's Department of Justice, settled out of court. He and Donald Trump settled out of court, sued again 3 years later because they kept doing it. I understand that history, but I'm careful about what I say for a reason, and I don't make claims about things I can't back up factually. All right, let's see here. All right, let me go to this clip here. I was on Roland Martin Unfiltered, January 8th, 2021. Roland interviewed Representative Maxine Waters. Probably this week we'll try to share. It was a long interview she did, and she talked about this insurrection that took place. We'll probably share some of those excerpts this week. But Roland then went to his panel to talk about the insurrection, and I was on his panel. And let's go to this clip. Here's what happened.
Republicans have a lot of blood on their hands.
Michael Imhotep, I made a reference to William O'Neill. William O'Neill was the informant of FBI, who was the right-hand man of Fred Hampton. He was the man who gave the officers in Chicago and the district attorney's office, gave them the floor plans of the house where Fred Hampton was and pinpointed exactly where Fred Hampton was sleeping, and was the one who gave Fred Hampton the drink that knocked him out as well. That is of concern to have these Capitol Police officers walking around with badges and guns, and they are there to protect members. Who says one of these folks doesn't go rogue and decide to fire a bullet into a CDC member because they stand with Trump in these domestic terrorists? This is the greatest concern that we have. And it's the same reason for the president. You know, the Secret Service is there to protect the president, and there's always that fear of an inside job. These people showed themselves. They showed exactly who they are on Wednesday. Absolutely, and there has to be a thorough vetting of the U.S. Capitol Police. Just who are members of the U.S. Capitol Police. There has to be a thorough vetting of who are members of the U.S. Capitol Police. But if we go back for a minute to the article that you referenced from Associated Press, I talked about that article on my show last night. Capitol Police rejected offers of federal help to quell mob. So you have to add, when you connect that to Representative Steny Hoyer being in the basement in a bunker or something, contacting governor of Maryland, Larry Hogan, asking Larry Hogan to send in the National Guard, and it takes 90 minutes for Larry Hogan to get approval from the Secretary of Defense of the Pentagon to send National Guard in. And then when you look at this article, second paragraph, it says, despite plenty of warnings of a possible insurrection and ample resources and time to prepare, the Capitol Police planned only for a free speech demonstration. But these people have been planning for weeks on social media, and they were planning an insurrection. It was out there in the open. So what made them think this is just going to be a free speech demonstration? So it's more than just I think it's more than just an inside job. It's something. I think it's multiple things happening at the same time with this. But this has to be fairly investigated. People need to be prosecuted. We already saw that U.S. Capitol Police Chief Stephen Hunt has announced he's resigning. Nancy Pelosi demanded his resignation. So one thing's for certain: this can't happen again. And what's very interesting, brother, is the next day they had new barricades up, more personnel, more presence, military presence, things like that. Well, why didn't you have that 24 hours before? Because there was ample warning for weeks that this was going to take place.
All right, pause it right there. Pause it right there, Joe. So those watching on our Facebook fan page, the African History Network, and our YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep, IMHOTEP, you see that we have the screen share up. This is the article that I referenced when I was on Roland Martin Unfiltered on Friday, January 8th. I talked about this article on my Thursday, January 7th show. This is the article that Joanne Reed referenced in the segment with the retired Capitol Hill police officer who's African American. This is from the Associated Press. This article came out the day after the insurrection. Capitol Police rejected offers of federal help to quell mob. So if you go back in the show I did Wednesday, 7th, Thursday, we talked about this the next day, Thursday, January 7th. Talked about this on my show. And I'm sitting there, I'm trying to figure this out. I said, wait a second, why did they turn down help? But if you look at this here, it says, and as the mob descended on the building Wednesday, Justice Department leaders reached out to offer up FBI agents. The police, the Capitol Police, U.S. Capitol Police, there that patrol is a force of something about 2,000 that patrol the U.S. Capitol, the Capitol building, the Senate, things like that, those grounds. The U.S. Capitol Police turned them down both times, according to senior defense officials and too familiar with the matter. So you got to understand this. As the mob is descending on the U.S. Capitol building, let's back up, look at this quickly. 3 days before supporters of President Donald Trump rioted at the Capitol, they should call them insurrectionists, traitors. The Pentagon asked the U.S. Capitol Police if it needed National Guard manpower. And as the mob descended on the building Wednesday, Justice Department leaders reached out to offer up FBI agents to the U.S. Capitol Police. The U.S. Capitol Police turned them down both times, according to senior defense officials and two people familiar with the matter. Despite plenty of warnings of a possible insurrection and ample resources and time to prepare, the U.S. Capitol Police planned only for a free speech demonstration. So people are saying, did they think it was just a free speech demonstration because these were mainly going to be white people and they weren't afraid of white people? Because I guarantee you, if this was a Black Lives Matter free speech demonstration, they would be in formation like they're ready to go to war. Even Joe Scarborough said this on MSNBC. He said that these were Black Lives Matter activists, they would have been shot. And this is what a lot of people saying. It's like, wait a second, dude, that's not how they treated Black Lives Matter activists back this past summer. Okay. All right. Look, those watching on our Facebook fan page, the African History Network, and our YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep, keep watching. We're going to keep broadcasting. We're out of time here on 9 10 a.m. Superstation. We're here Monday through Friday, 11 p.m. to 12 midnight. Sundays, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Right now, it's correct. Wrong behavior is not over till we win. Wakanda forever. Stay tuned for Pastor Mo. We'll talk to you tomorrow night. Peace. All right. So, so this is what's taking place, and all of this is being exposed. All of this racism, all this white supremacy, all this treachery. How big of a traitor Donald Trump is all being exposed. All this came out this past week, and you have a lot of Republicans. You still have some. You still have some to side with, but you have Republicans that are saying Lisa Murkowski of Alaska, Senator Ben Sass in Nebraska. They're coming out saying he needs to. He has to be removed from office. Senator Pat Toomey, Republican, is saying he needs to resign. It's probably not going to happen. Unless maybe you have a contingency of Republican senators that go to the White House and say, sir, it's time for you to go. Why don't you just go to Mar-a-Lago, play golf for the rest of your life. Don't just leave. It's time to go. Just resign. We'll ask Pence to give you a pardon. And you just go play golf for the rest of your life. Cheat at golf, you know. And you just spend your time playing golf and exploiting undocumented immigrants at your golf resorts and hotels and prepare for all these indictments that are coming for your ass. You know. All right. Erica said he must be removed this week. I agree. So articles of impeachment, it looks like, are going to be introduced this week as early as Monday. And the House is ready to impeach him. We'll see what happens there. We're going to talk about this some more on our Monday show. Those watching, hey, if you like this type of information, if you want to donate to the African History Network, $ TheAHNShow through Cash App, $ TheAHNShow through Cash App, also through PayPal, paypal.me/TheAHNShow, and at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Click on the yellow donate button, okay? But if you have both Cash App and PayPal and you're trying to figure out which one should I use, Cash App is easier, so that's fine. But that helps us keep broadcasting, stay on the air. We hit six nights a week now. It helps us keep doing the research, etc. We'll be here a few more minutes. I want to get through, try to squeeze through some of this information here. I pulled together so much, and then a lot of people don't know that I'm on Monday through Friday, so they know I've been on for 5 years on Sunday, so they call in on Sunday. So I wanted to make sure we got to as many callers as we could. So some of this other information we'll have to get through Monday through Friday, but I got so much stuff here. I want to go back to the real main breaking news story, the news story that came out today. FBI, NYPD told Capitol Hill police about possibility of violence before riot, senior official says. And I posted this article on our Facebook fan page, the African History Network, when it came out. Let me show. I'm gonna bring it up here on the screen share. Because I'm putting these pieces together and I'm like, this doesn't sound right. It's more than just an inside job. It's like, no, I'm going through putting all these pieces together. I'm like, no, this doesn't sound right. Because I read the article from the Associated Press that we talked about on my show Thursday night about the Capitol Hill police turning down help from the FBI and Department of Justice, things like this. I'm like, this just doesn't sound right. So the FBI and the New York City Police Department passed information, and we're going to blow this up here, passed information to U.S. Capitol Police about the possibility of violence during the protests Wednesday against the against the counting of the electoral college vote. The counting of the electoral, they count the votes and certify the votes. They don't make changes. They can object, but that ceremony is not to make changes or to overturn the will of the people, things like that. That is largely just ceremonial. Okay, that happens every 4 years. Usually, people don't even pay attention to it, only because Donald Trump has been lying and putting so much emphasis on it, saying Mike Pence can save us and he can keep me in office, he can overturn this. Did people start paying attention to that? Well, people don't pay attention to that. Okay, so the FBI and New York City Police Department passed information to U.S. Capitol Police about the possibility of violence during the protest Wednesday, January 6th, against the counting of the Electoral College vote. And the FBI even visited more than a dozen extremists already under investigation to urge them not to travel to Washington. Senior law enforcement officials said. Now, the previously unreported details undercut the assertion by a top FBI official that officials had no indication that violence was a possibility, and they add to questions about what intelligence authorities had reviewed before the Capitol riot, which led to the death of an officer and 4 other people, including a rioter who was shot and killed by police. Now, a senior FBI official said, social media is just part of a full intelligence picture. Social media is just part of a full intelligence picture. And while there was First Amendment protected activity on social media, to include some people making threats, to this point, investigators have not found that there was an organized plot to access the Capitol, a senior FBI official said. Now, we're going to talk some more about that on Monday's show. I had to get the clip from MSNBC. Frank Figliuzzi, who is a former deputy of the counter-terrorist division of the FBI, really broke this down. And I think Ken Delanian, who also wrote this article, Ken Delanian talked about this as well. And what they were saying was, on social media, even though there were people talking about violence and things like this, if I remember correctly, the way they phrased it was, one of the things they said was, oftentimes on social media, you'll have people making threats. Out of say like 1,000 threats, 1 or 2 actually take place. When you're trying to monitor something, you're trying to figure out, okay, which threats are those just people mouthing off, just talking stuff, and which ones are the serious threats that can actually happen. This is how they explained it. One of them gave the example, out of 1,000 threats, 1 actually happens. You're trying to figure out, separate the people just talking stuff from the people who are really serious, so you know who to hone in on. Okay. So I want to try to find that clip, because Frank Figliuzzi can explain it, and even Ken Delaney, they can explain it better than I can. It was immediately obvious. After the Capitol was seized by a violent mob Wednesday that Capitol Police, whose job is to defend the facility, and the lawmakers who worked there had completely misjudged the security threat. The chief of the force was quickly forced out of his job, as were other key legislative security officials. One of the distinctions they made, so just common sense, it would tell us, okay, if we have all these people talking about violence. We need to have a larger presence there. We need to have more people. One of the distinctions they made was also credible threats of something like a how they put it, credible threats of a actual plot, credible threats of an actual single identifiable plot. So you have all these people talking about violence, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, things like that. But also they try to look for a credible actual plot. Okay, so what some people are surmising is that when let me back up here. To this point, investigators have not found there was an organized plot to access the Capitol, organized plot to access the Capitol. And one of the things that they were saying was, even though it was a lot of people, and yeah, you did have people with walkie-talkies and things like this, two-way radios, etc. People had to ask for directions to find different, to find their way around and find different offices, etc. Okay, so some people in intelligence are making a distinction between people who are actually going to commit violence and an actual organized plot to commit violence. An actual organized plot is a trigger or a threat on another level. Okay, yes, the violence is a threat, but an organized plot is a threat on a much higher level. I guess it'd be a good way to explain it. Okay, so it was immediately obvious. It was immediately obvious after the Capitol was seized by a violent mob Wednesday that Capitol Police, whose job is to defend the facility and the lawmakers who work there, had completely misjudged the threat. Had completely misjudged the threat. The chief of the force was quickly forced out of his job, as were other key legislative security officials. As evidence mounts, that same extremists, that some extremists had told the world what they had in mind through social media, questions are emerging about whether the FBI, the Department of Homeland Security, and other federal agencies took the postings seriously enough, and why, if they did, they didn't step in until well after the building was under attack. Okay, but at the same time, you know, you go back to that January 7th article, the department, as the U.S. Capitol is being attacked on Wednesday, the Department of Justice reaches out to the U.S. Capitol Police to offer FBI agents to come assist, and U.S. Capitol Police tell them, no, we don't need it. Yeah, I mean, so asked Friday whether the slow response Wednesday was the result of an intelligence failure, the official who leads the FBI's Washington field office, Stephen TheAHNShow, said no, quote, there was no indication that there was anything, they have in brackets, planned, anything planned other than First Amendment protected activity, he said. Now, DC, now there's a whole lot of people under fire for this. DC police chief, and we know Mayor Muriel Bowser was on, she's been doing a number of interviews because now she does not have, she's in a precarious position because she does not have DC does not have necessarily its own National Guard. She has to get approval from the Department of Defense because DC is not a state. DC is a district. And this is one of the reasons why there's a fight for DC statehood. she has to get approval from the federal government to use National Guard, okay, in DC. She has to get, she doesn't control the National Guard. So, so it's really tricky the way this works. You're dealing with these different jurisdictions and things like this. It's really tricky the way things work in Washington, D.C. D.C. Police Chief Robert Conti, and let's go back to the screen share here. D.C. Police Chief Robert Conti said something similar Thursday, telling reporters, quote, there was no intelligence that suggested there would be a breach of the U.S. Capitol, end quote. Now, Ken Rapano, the Assistant Secretary of Defense for Homeland Defense, told reporters that the Justice Department and other law enforcement officials told the Defense Department repeatedly that they had no indications that there would be, quote, significant violent protests, quote, significant violent protests, end quote. But there were ample indications of potential violence. Now, the other thing is, I don't think people took into consideration is that Donald Trump has 88 million, well, he had 88 million Twitter followers. I don't know if they took that into consideration. He had 88 million Twitter followers. And when he tweets things like that, it's going to echo, it's going to be shared, and they're planning on other platforms. There were thousands of people that showed up. So I don't know if they like took that into account, like just on Twitter, how many social media followers he had, just how many followers he had on Twitter, and how that would echo. And then his tweets are being shared on CNN and MSNBC and things like this. I don't know if they took that into account. Okay, so let's go back to this article here. Let's go back to this article. All right, so, but there was ample indications of potential violence. Now, NBC News has reported that a digital flyer made public on Instagram and Facebook last month, so it'd be December 2020, made public on Facebook and Instagram last month, referred to what would happen as Operation Occupy the Capitol. Operation Occupy the Capitol. On the fringe message board Acon, which used to be, I think, 8chan, which is popular with QAnon followers, users talked for weeks about a siege of the Capitol. So read the rest of this article here. We'll talk about this some more Monday show. And the other thing is, I'm not sure some of the people who were saying no credible threats of a organized plot and things like this. But okay, some people, I'm not sure how savvy they are with social media as well. Because you start putting this stuff on Instagram, you hitting a whole separate group, you hitting a whole nother group of people that may not even be on Twitter. So he had 88 million followers on Twitter. You start putting this stuff on Instagram. And if one person posted a flyer on Instagram, then it's going to circulate on Instagram. You could be hitting a whole nother group of people who are not even on Twitter. Man, they need to hire like some 16-year-olds to like monitor social media to catch these people. I mean, they need to go get some 16, 17-year-olds to go monitor social media. So, quote, you can go to Washington on January 6th and help storm the Capitol, an Acon user said, So ACON is one of these white supremacist social media platforms, okay, message boards. A user said Tuesday, a day before the siege, you can go, they posted, this person posted on ACON, you can go to Washington on January 6th and help storm the Capitol. Quote, as many patriots as can be, we will storm the government buildings. They talk about assassinating people all time. They posted this on social media. Now, it is true. It is, I understand, it is true that law enforcement are trying, in general, it is true they're trying to monitor on social media, because people say all types of stuff on social media, and people will say things, they post things on social media that they wouldn't say face to face to people. They get, a lot of times people get courage on social media to say stuff that they wouldn't say to somebody face to face, and they wouldn't do. So in general, law enforcement has to figure out, okay, is this person like really, is this person serious, or are they just mouthing off, they're drunk, or what have you? But here, there are multiple, I don't know the exact number, but there are tons of people talking about January 6th, posting about going January 6th. And you had Trump. So one of the things that's different here is you had Trump, who has 88 million followers promoting January 6th. See, that's different than just somebody who's drunk just posting on social media about attacking somebody, blah, 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 and then they go sleep it off, and then they forget what happened the next day. You got Trump promoting this multiple times from his Twitter account. Daniel J. Jones, president of Advanced Democracy, Inc., global research organization, a global research organization that studies disinformation and extremism, told NBC News in a story published the day before the riot, so that had been January 5th, quote, in regard to the protest plan for January 6th, the violent rhetoric we're seeing online is at a new level. The violent rhetoric we're seeing online is at a new level. There are endorsements of violence across all the platforms, okay? So yeah, this is true. This is what I'm saying. There were tons of people talking about violence and things like this here. So the question is asked, how could the FBI and other agencies have missed all of that? It turns out they didn't, official said. It turns out they did not, official said. Let me put this back on for a second here. So the question is asked, how could the FBI and other officials have missed all of that? It turns out they didn't, they did not, official said. Quote, prior to this event, the FBI obtained credible, I want to blow this up so you all see this. Okay. Prior to this event, the FBI obtained credible and actionable information about individuals who were planning on traveling to the protest, who expressed a desire to engage in violence, the senior FBI official said. The FBI was able to discourage those individuals from traveling to DC. Okay, so that's the 12, the dirty dozen, that's the 12. The official added that the FBI and our federal, state, and local partners collected and shared available intelligence in preparation for the various planned events. Okay. The FBI was prepared to adapt as needed to fluid events on the ground, including having rapid response teams in reserve. Throughout most of the day, the crowd was peaceful and non-confrontational. Okay, that's at the rally. Okay, they must be talking about at the rally where Trump was, not when they got to the U.S. Capitol building. However, when it became clear that some individuals were surging onto the Capitol grounds and entering the buildings, the U.S. Capitol Police requested assistance. Yet, oh, now you want assistance. Within 50 minutes of that request, 3 FBI tactical teams were on the scene to gain control of the area and offer protection to congressional members and staff. Within 50 minutes. Over the course of the evening, the FBI presence ultimately grew to over 150 agents and other personnel. Somebody dropped the ball on this. It's like, this doesn't make any sense. The FBI official said that by dissuading some extremists from traveling to Washington, the Bureau may have prevented an even more violent situation. This is what Frank Figliuzzi was saying, because he said these were 12 of the worst white supremacists, and these were going to be like leaders of the insurrection. New York police, who have the most robust intelligence collection and analytical arm of any local police agency in the country, sent law enforcement agencies across the country, including Capitol Police. They sent them an intelligence packet describing threats and violent rhetoric on social media in the weeks and days leading up to the rally, multiple senior law enforcement officials said. The officials said Capitol Police were given a specific and separate intelligence report describing extremist rhetoric and threats of violence that appeared on social media in connection with the rally. Law enforcement officials familiar with the intelligence assessments said President Donald Trump's exhortation of the crowd to march on the Capitol probably prompted a much larger contingent of people to head there than might otherwise have gone. And he told them, I'll be there with you. He told them, he said, now we're going to go to the U.S. Capitol building. You got to be strong. We got to, you know, we hope Mike Pence comes through for us. He said, and I'll be there with you. And he didn't go there with them. He went back to watch it on television. And Senator Ben Sasse was interviewed, a Republican from Nebraska. I think it was Vox.com or Trump is a demagogue, by the way. See, this is we can never let somebody like this become president again. Ben Sasse was on, he was interviewed by, I think it was Vox.com or Vice.com, one of them. And okay, it was Vox.com. Now, I talked about this in the, there's an article from the New York Times that, the article from the Times that talked about Trump is talking about giving himself a pardon. Okay, and my notes are all over the place because I'm running off the old laptop. Police. Who's that? Striking. There was an article about Trump talking about giving himself a pardon. But this article here by Vox.com, Senator Ben Sasse, Republican of Nebraska, said, and let's turn the screen share back on so you can see this. Okay. And since Ben Sasse has been reelected, so he's in for another 6 years, he doesn't have to worry about being primary. Now Ben Sasse has a backbone and he's standing up to Trump and calling out Trump. Imagine that. Republican Senator, White House aides say Trump was, quote unquote, delighted as Capitol was stormed. White House aides say Trump was, quote unquote, delighted as Capitol was stormed. Senator Ben Sasse said that according to senior White House officials, Trump was, quote unquote, confused while others were not excited. They're storming the U.S. Capitol building for me. They love me. Why you all aren't excited? Look how they love dear leader. One Republican senator who says he's been in touch with senior White House aides about the matter claims the president was, quote unquote, delighted. Senator Ben Sasse, Republican of Nebraska, said during an interview with conservative radio host Hugh Hewitt Friday morning, said, now Hugh Hewitt, if you watch MSNBC, Hugh Hewitt had a show, a short-lived show on MSNBC, I think it was last year, 2020. Used to come on like 8 a.m. It was horrible. He's a right-wing conservative, closet white supremacist. He doesn't want to admit it though. He kind of looks like the Joker. And the show was so bad, it went from an hour down to a half an hour. Came on Saturday morning, they just canceled. It was horrible. But Senator Ben Sasse told Hugh Hewitt, quote, I don't have any idea what was in his heart about what he wanted to happen once they were in the Capitol, but he wanted there to be chaos. And I'm sure you've also had conversations with other senior White House officials, as I have, Ben Sasse continued. He went on to say, quote, as this was unfolding on television, Donald Trump was walking around the White House confused about why other people on his team weren't as excited as he was, as you had rioters pushing against Capitol Police trying to get into the building, end quote. Well, maybe because they read the U.S. Constitution and they understand these are traitors trying to interrupt a process that's mandated by the U.S. Constitution that you obviously haven't read. This account generally coincides with other reporting sourced to anonymous White House aides about how Donald Trump responded to his supporters' actions, this insurrection, these traitors, these domestic terrorists, how Trump responded to their actions, and why he took so long to tell them to, quote unquote, go home, because he loved it. I mean, this was like must-see TV. This is like NBC back in the 80s. Was it must-see TV? This was must-see TV for him. He's like, oh, no, I don't want to be there with you. I want to go home and watch this. Oh. He said, you aren't happy? Try to tell you. All right. So that's enough radio for today. We'll deal with all these other articles Monday and Tuesday. I got a ton of stuff. A lot of these people are being fired from their jobs. Good. It's about 84 people who've been charged now. These dumbasses shot videos of themselves and Facebook Live videos, things like this. They shot videos of themselves, put it on social media, took pictures of themselves, put it out there. So the authorities just following social media, just following the pictures, watching the videos. Oh, they identified themselves and all this stuff. They just following them and going and arresting their dumb asses. You know, so sometimes it's good to be stupid, you know. You know, so hey. I was gonna make a joke, but I was gonna make a joke saying I like my white supremacist stupid, but anyway. All right, that's enough radio for today. Look, we got to get out of here. Hey, visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. All my DVD lectures are there, digital downloads. Also, we have a lot of orders shipping out this week. If you like this type of information, you can donate to the African History Network, $, the TheAHNShow through Cash App. TC Cook said that was a good one. $ the AHN show through Cash App, then also through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN show, or at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. And then we also have the online course that I taught in 2019. It's all on demand. Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa. Understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. That's on demand. And as soon as you register for that, as soon as you pay for that, you can start watching it. We're going to run that class again. I got to get things together. I didn't, a month ago, I didn't know I need a new laptop, but this one crashed on me. And so I need a new laptop. I got to figure that out. But we're going to run that class again because people have been asking me for that. African American History Month is coming up. Also, people have been asking me about that class. And then also the Black History 101 Mobile Museum. Black History 101 Mobile Museum. African American History Month is coming up. People are looking for something interesting to do. But even for the month of January, and Dr. King Day is coming up as well. So Dr. Khalid El-Hakim, for 25 years, has been running the Black History 101 Mobile Museum. And it has carried on the rich legacy of the Black Museum movement in America by showcasing original artifacts of the Black experience at colleges, universities, K through 12 schools, corporations, libraries, conferences, and cultural events, making it the most traversed Black history mobile exhibit in American history. Dr. Khalid El-Hakim is a highly sought after public speaker on topics of Black history, social studies, education, museum studies, hip hop, and race relations. Visit their website, blackhistorymobilemuseum.com, blackhistorymobilemuseum.com. You can also give them a call at 313-645-4197, 313-645-4197. They are currently scheduling in-person and virtual exhibits nationwide. In-person and virtual exhibits nationwide. This is the Black History 101 Mobile Museum. If you want me to do a presentation for either Dr. King Day or African American History Month, which is February, it used to be called Black History Month, African American History Month, you can email me at customer service at AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, customer service at AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, my Dr. King Day celebrations, I don't do these okie doke, we shall overcome, I have a dream nonsense. I deal with the revolutionary Dr. King. I break down the history of the I Have a Dream speech and what he was really talking about. We talk about the revolutionary Dr. King. We talk about the Dr. King that met with Malcolm X, March 26, 1964. And we deal with also, I deal with Dr. King and Malcolm X because their ideologies were converging towards the end of both of their lives. And Malcolm X, when he leaves the Nation of Islam, Malcolm joins the civil rights movement. Okay, this is something that a lot of people don't talk about. Malcolm joins the civil rights movement, and Malcolm is focused on interjecting or injecting Black nationalism into the civil rights movement. If you read, there's a speech that Malcolm gave that is oftentimes quoted, but very few people really understand it because they haven't really read the speech. You have to read Malcolm's speeches. It's called the Ballad of the Bullet. Now, Malcolm first delivers the Ballad of the Bullet. We're going to make this short because I'm about to start going off into another presentation. Malcolm first delivers the Ballad or the Bullet March 29th, 1964 in Washington Heights, New York. That's late in the same month that he officially separates from the Nation of Islam, which was March 8th, 1964. This was 3 days after he met Dr. King for the first and only time, March 26, 1964, at the U.S. Senate debate for the Civil Rights Act of 64. And a lot of what Malcolm is talking about in the speech is based upon what he saw when he was at the U.S. Senate debate. And he's talking about the Civil Rights Act, all this. All that You have to when you read Malcolm's speeches, especially people try to quote Malcolm, you have to understand context and chronology. You have to understand the chronology of Malcolm's life, and you have to understand the context of what was taking place when he gave that speech. Okay, so because a lot of people just quote Malcolm out of context and don't understand his ideologies are constantly evolving, especially when he leaves the Nation of Islam. But even when Malcolm was still in the nation, and the most important period of Malcolm's life to study is when he leaves the Nation of Islam, because Malcolm can speak for himself then. And Malcolm is going into a different direction because he joins the civil rights movement. And when he meets Dr. King, March 26, 1964, he tells Dr. King, I'm throwing all of my effort into the heart of the civil rights movement. So we got to understand Dr. King and Malcolm. But when Malcolm is still in the Nation of Islam, Malcolm sends a letter July 31st, 1963, the month before the March on Washington. He sends a letter to the leading civil rights leaders, including Dr. King, asking for a meeting with all the civil rights leaders. And Malcolm was calling for a unification of the civil rights leaders and their followers while he was still in the Nation of Islam. And Malcolm said we have to find a common solution to a common problem posed by a common enemy. This is why he's still in the Nation of Islam. So when I see people quoting Malcolm on social media and quoting Battle of the Bulls, things like this, I can listen to them tell they don't really know what the hell they're talking about. But you got to read Malcolm's speeches. And you have to understand the chronology of Malcolm's history and the evolution of his ideology. And see, this book here, Malcolm X Speaks, this is a lot of Malcolm's speeches after he leaves the Nation of Islam, which is the critical portion of his life that really has to be studied and understood. All right, we gotta get out of here. Right now, it's correct wrong behavior is not over till we win Wakanda forever. We'll talk to you tomorrow night. Peace.